Ever wondered how DHCP are being configured on a router to give each VLAN a different network addresses? Here is how it is done. After you are done connecting your PCs to your preferred switch port, you configure your VLANs and assign each of the switch port numbers to the VLAN you want. After you are done creating the VLANs and assigning port number you want, you activate the VLAN 1 which serves as our native VLAN and give it an IP. Moreover, don't forget to turn it on. If possible, you don't know the usefulness of VLAN 1. VLAN 1 is a default VLAN which is mostly used in Cisco switches, which serve as a default VLAN, and all switch ports are assigned to VLAN 1 by default. After you are done giving your VLAN 1 an IP address, you go into each of the VLANs interface, which is VLAN 10, VLAN 20, and VLAN 30. You give each of them an IP address for the sake of our own stick routing. So you give each of the interface an IP address. After you are done configuring them, you check the VLAN to be sure of what you did. You can also check the running configuration to be sure of all you have done. After you are done with the configuration on your switch, you move to the router. On this router here, I use the interface port G001, which is where my switch is connected to. You get the router interface on and you give it an IP address. After that, we proceed to the configuration of the DHCP on the router. While configuring the DHCP router, don't forget you have to input your network address, your default gateway, and also your DNS. The network address will be the network address of the VLAN you created. The IP address we assigned to VLAN 10 earlier. And moreover, after that, you are going to configure your default gateway, which will be the particular IP address of the VLAN. And after that, you have to configure your DNS, which we are going to use Google DNS, which is 8.8.8. And you replicate the same information for each of the VLAN, which will be VLAN 20 and VLAN 30. You replicate the same information for them. After you are done with the router configuration of the DHCP, we move back to the switch. Remember earlier we forgot to configure a trunk, which will help in passing our VLAN through the trunk to the router. And don't forget, while configuring the trunk, you have to set your encapsulation to be .1Q, which is the protocol used by VLANs. After you are done with that, we move back to the router to configure our on-stick router, which we are going to use the sub interface of the interface G00, which was where our trunk was connected to. You are connecting 3 sub interface to the interface G00, which will be for the 3 VLANs, which we are going to have G000.10.20 and .30. And after that, don't forget our VLAN encapsulation, like I said earlier, encapsulation .1Q. After that, you input your IP address, the IP address of the VLAN with the subnet marks. After you are done configuring the sub interfaces, you can hereby proceed to checking the running configuration to be sure of all the details you have inputted. In my video, I decided to include IP excluded addresses. IP excluded address is a situation whereby if you have an IP assigned to a device already, you can exclude it from the DHCP to avoid giving any particular device the particular IP address. So we're having the VLAN IP address excluded from the DHCP addresses. So no VLAN IP address will be given to any device to avoid conflict. Earlier, we forgot to configure an IP address for our interface G00, which is what I'm trying to do now. Sorry. After that, we are going to set an IP address helper for each of the VLANs. The usefulness of the IP address helper, it serves as a gateway from the VLANs to fetch DHCP address from the router, which, as you can see, our router interface IP address is the VLAN helper address. So after you are done setting that, you are good to go. You do a running configuration to be sure of all you have done so far. After that, we are good to go. We can set our PCs to DHCP for it to fetch a DHCP address for its own VLAN. As you can see, this one is the VLAN 10 and the other one is VLAN 20, the third one is VLAN 30, and each of them are having a different network addresses which serve as their own VLAN network. Mind you, the inter-VLAN communication in this first pinging will fail because we are here to activate an IP routing on the switch. Then after that, we activate the IP routing on the switch. Then we are going to have a successful inter-VLAN DHCP configuration. Thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate. Hope to see you back. God bless you.